Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal link in the info box below the video once it's rendered. Most importantly though, if you would like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the shape of the Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcomed back on the next stream. Please also share the show. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel. So please share the show. And one last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by The Plain Truth, Spurs Chemo, Sleeping Warrior, and Ranty. Good to have you all.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Yo, yo.
Hello. Where's Arwin gone?
Ooh, I think he left.
Really? He's phoning me on Skype.
What's that?
What's up?
There we go, ready?
Good to have you, Travis.
What's up?
Right,
Are we
let's
live?
rattle our way through the housekeeping. So, gentlemen, any signs of
very classy,
curvature?
Anthony sniping me. Very, very classy of you.
I didn't snipe you, Arwin.
Oh, really?
Have you got any,
Did
have you got
Randy
any
do it
evidence
again?
that was me?
Did Randy do it again?
I did
I
it
don't
again.
know. You didn't.
Wow,
Can you
Randy,
stop
you
sniping
are
each
such
other?
a character.
For God's sake. Can we at least get through housekeeping
what was
before
that,
there's
Arwin?
infighting?
It was very classy that I did what, Arwin?
Well, I just went with that since you basically told me yesterday. Well, I'm going to do it then to you. You know,
Doesn't that
so
prove
I
that
was
your
just
powers of
basing it
logical
upon what
deduction are
you
kind of
said
screwed.
earlier.
Hang on a
Sorry.
second. Hold on. So, let me get this straight. At this stage, all is square, right?
No, I owe Arwin a snipe. But now Ranty sniped Arwin, so Arwin owes Ranty one now.
Well, it saved you doing it because he was being
God.
so obnoxious in the discussions before we
Oh,
started. went
you
live
mean I
that
was actually
couldn't-
being
I honestly
consequential?
couldn't have
I was
lasted more than 5
actually
minutes with him, and if he carries
applying
on, I'll just
Anthony's
leave.
method to him.
I'll
Yeah?
just, I'll
Because
just
I
leave.
can't
Can I just say that I'm the
prove
victim?
Hold on.
acceleration
Look,
force
I'm happy for you to...
scientific
Hold on.
method.
Hold on.
So
I'm happy
then
for you to
I'm
have this...
holding the
Arwin!
platter to the
Arwin!
same
Arwin!
concept.
I'm happy for you to
So
have...
are the days of our lives.
I'm happy for you to have this conversation, but just keep it calm. There's no need for it to be descending into you at each other's throats. Just have the conversation that you were having. It was a good conversation till I put you on mute to start the show. So I don't really know how it descended in the space of 2 minutes.
We've been having a great conversation all morning. Arwin joined the call 15 minutes ago, and the next thing we all want to kill each other because he's there and he's causing whatever he's causing, and he's literally driving me up the wall.
No, Ranty, that's
Nathan,
not
Right?
can I just point
Hold
out...
on,
to
hold
smooth
on,
things
Anthony,
over
hold
between
on.
him and Anthony, and
Hold
he
on.
didn't want to know.
Let Ranty's
No,
levelled
that's
his
not what
accusations.
happened at
Now
all,
just let Arwin respond without jumping on him.
Yeah, that's not what happened at all, Ranty. I came in, and Anthony then later came in, and the first thing he did was start saying, "Oh, there's no force, there's no force." He started to like immediately fuck around with me.
No
okay?
swearing, please.
Can
Poke
I
me,
just say,
whatever you want to call
I'm the
it.
victim here. I
Immediately
did no
do
such... I did no
his
harm,
shitty
yet
thing
got accused
that
by
you've
Arwin
been doing
that I
from the
kicked him.
very
We'll
start.
say so no
Like a
evidence
Anthony.
neurotic
whatsoever,
wasp
Arwin.
bully.
You owe me an apology.
You're a neurotic wasp bully.
So, what apology?
No. Ranty owes me 3 apologies, and when he gives them, I will give you yours.
Ranty
When you
doesn't-
behave like a
Right,
normal
right, I've had
human
enough.
being,
I've had
that'll be
enough. This is
fine.
rubbish. This is garbage content. This is nothing to do with Flat Earth. This is just your
Do anything.
personal differences. We're not even discussing the matter that you got into the initial argument about, which was gravity, which was interesting. Now you just ad hominem each other, and it's boring. Well, I'm sure it's not boring. I'm sure everyone in the audience is bloody loving this, actually. But there we go. I'd rather we were talking about Flat Earth.
Me too.
Yeah. Thanks, Travis.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
lovely. Yeah, we had a discussion for like 2 hours, and This time I wasn't just on my own, because, hey, guess what? Other flat earthers agree with me. It's
Well,
nice
maybe you
how
should
that
go over
works now, doesn't
there.
it? How things change, how things shift.
Talking with them, then.
Just like flat earth shifts.
Okay,
people's
that's
consciousness.
interesting, Arwin. Fill us in. What are we talking about specifically? Or shall I lead it with a housekeeping question?
No, whatever you like. But yeah, I can summarize it pretty easily. It's
Okay,
what's
well,
been
before you do,
going on ever since
no,
the start.
that was a hint. That was a hint, Arwin. It was a hint. It was a hint to summarise for the audience, but you didn't take the hint, so I'll do it. So what we are specifically talking about is gravity. And in essence, we have a disagreement in amongst a few flat earthers on the panel. Arwin, as thou sought out an allegiance from others about his take on the reason things go towards the ground. So, Arwin, take it away.
Yeah, now that's a false assumption. Reason things go to the ground because of the alignment of the density buoyancy in a stationary fashion on this Earth. But when other forces are applied, like motion, acceleration, like force, a centrifugal force, then this alignment of the density buoyancy changes, it shifts, and the volumes, the masses, the materials within the body or to which the forces are being applied finds a new equilibrium in accordance to the balance of the forces being applied to it. So the density buoyancy direction shifts. Yeah, that's the main principle that I am focusing on, and then asking, hey, why up and down? Why not just left or right? Why in the stationary setting is there an up and down? Why does the heavy actually move downward and the lighter move upward? Why is that? Why not just some random direction? And Anthony has no answer for it. He only has more descriptions on density and buoyancy. And we got into the nitty-gritty.
No, fine. Hold on, Anthony. Hold on. So, is there anything else you want to add to that, Arwin? I don't want you to jump all over Anthony when he responds.
Okay, well, I'm not finished yet. I'm basically now giving a description, and we can get over the details again. Oh, hello, Mark, by the way. Thanks for joining the Skype.
Hi, Owen. Can you hear
Mark, you appreciate you're live, right?
Super.
Yeah, so we can hear you. But to summarize it, a few arguments that came out of Anthony's mouth, and I thought it was very embarrassing of him, was there is
hang
no
on a
up
minute.
and down.
Hang on a minute.
Yeah,
You're going to argue my
Arwin,
position.
hold on. I don't want you to now represent Anthony's argument. Just, is there anything you want to add to your description of what you believe?
Well, what I believe is that density and buoyancy is an expression of, it is like an effect that sets in when force is applied to matter. Then the matter starts rearranging itself within the body to which the force is applied in accordance to density and buoyancy in the form of pressure, in which also weight is expressed, by the way. And when I talk about pressure, I'm not talking about the effect of basically matter redividing itself within a container, because that is a base condition that process will already have to be done for. The equilibrium within the total container will have to be found, and then when it is found, then the density and buoyancy sets in accordance to the forces being applied. So if there is a motion upwards, an accelerating motion upwards to a body of matter, for example, things will be pushed down. If there is an accelerating motion sideways, then the heavy will be pushed in opposition to the direction it's going in, and the light will be pushed in the direction it's moving in. All these types of effects are very obvious. They are absolutely crystal clear. They are universal, and they always work, no matter what you do.
Okay, that sounds
universally present.
That sounds like a conclusory statement. Conclusory? Is that the right word? Anyway.
Yeah, well, you can use experiments, and I've already given
I
so many
I don't need any expansion, because you had quite a long time, Arwin. So, you know, everyone else has been reasonably tolerant or have kept them on mute when they burp. But anyway, so, right, Anthony. Only Anthony.
Right, let's try and start with some common ground that we can both agree on. Is it right to... Do you agree, Arwin, that this is a logical deduction of yours?
Yes, I do.
Do we agree that a logical deduction is devoid of evidence? Otherwise, it would be a proof.
No, I do not.
Arwen, don't answer those questions. Just let Anthony tell us what you observe and what you conclude.
No,
I'm trying to
not
get to
going to
the
answer
point
the
where we
question. It's
disagree.
not devoid of evidence, not at all. It's just devoid of scientific proof in accordance to the scientific method. The evidence is absolutely all present, all encompassing.
Hold on, that sounds
that
like
is what
baller.
I described earlier.
Hold on, that sounds like baller standards of evidence.
Indeed, it does.
I thought there was a difference between evidence and proof.
Well, the scientific
there?
evidence.
Proof.
Hold on. The scientific evidence, as you've pointed
No,
out.
I'm not saying.
And there's
Sorry, I'm not
and
saying
there's
scientific
observations.
evidence, just evidence.
Well, okay. Well, the scientific evidence, yeah, and there's observations.
Okay.
Right. Can we start
Well,
with
scientific evidence, the functions of density and buoyancy when forces are being applied are absolutely provable. Describable. They
but
will always work out the same way. It is.
But we're not. Hold on. But I can say that about the sun, Arwen. I can say there's the sun, right? It's provable. And then if someone comes along and asserts that it's a certain distance based on it travelling around a sphere Earth or whatever they assert, you can debunk what they assert about the sun, but it doesn't debunk the sun. The sun is still there. And what you're saying is, well, I still see the effect, and I will conjure a cause based on what I see.
No. That's not what. No, that's not the process at all. The effects of density and buoyancy shifting their alignment due to forces being applied is absolutely universal. It is measurable. It is repeatable. Everyone can do it. There's even a gradient that can be well defined in detail, can be formalized, and it will always work out because it is a closed, complete system.
I agree.
The
But
only
it doesn't
thing that's
establish.
lacking is the ability
hold on,
to
Arwen.
vary
Hold on.
the downward
I
force
agree.
itself.
I'm not going to disagree with anything you've just said, but it does not establish a cause.
Yeah, I know. I don't have scientific proof, I told you.
But you're using words like force.
Yeah? So what?
But they're causal.
Oh, really, are they?
Well, yeah, if you're going to use the example of a balloon being pushed forward when you accelerate and all of the air moves backwards, then there's a causative relationship that you can quantify. Now, with the Earth, with it being a constant effect that we observe, you can accept that you see it, like the sun, but you cannot establish the cause. But you're trying to define it and give it a name and a label.
Yeah, well, I have to. How else would I address it?
Why are you addressing
I can
it at
address
all?
it in detail, describing exactly what the effect is. Downward force is actually not even the best terminology, but it is intuitively the most directly speaking, because what it actually is upward acceleration force-like.
No, you've just done a switcheroo again. You've said, when I describe the effect, and then halfway through the sentence, you inserted a cause for that effect. Well, it's the same as the sun, Arwen. Yeah, you're trying to say this is what causes it. It is X distance. It is compiled of hydrogen gas. Whatever. You're giving it its cause when you haven't established it. And in order to establish cause, you've got a method for doing that called the scientific method. But you're saying, no, it doesn't apply. I can't apply it. But I'm still ultimately going to describe an effect and attribute a cause.
Yeah. Well, density and buoyancy are effects, are well established, and they change their alignment when forces are applied, and that's a telltale sign.
When forces are applied, you can change that constant equilibrium. I.e., if you accelerate in a car and change what was constant to a moving body of air, you will change the equilibrium. But once you continue and you have a closed system, that will ultimately become a constant again. The balloon will still be going up towards the top of the car.
No,
the helium
that's
balloon.
not true. That's not true.
If
No,
you
it's
drive...
not true. That's only if you motion in a constant speed. If your acceleration is constant, to which this specific effect is based, then it will not.
Yeah, I
If
agree
the
with the
acceleration
effect.
will
Okay,
be
no, you are
cumulative,
correct. If it was
then it
continually...
will work like that.
Okay, I concede. If you were continually accelerating, and if you weren't, you would eventually reach a constant in a closed system. My point is these are effects.
Yeah, no shit. I know.
Right.
So what's the conclusion then, Nathan?
Well, there isn't one. I can't give you a detailed explanation for a causal relationship for a constant that we observe. I can observe it, but to draw a causal relationship is fallacious. It's not reasonable. Now, I'm not going to deny that we have density layers, whatever you want to describe them as, or that something that is heavier will drop if you drop it through a thinner layer of something less dense. Now, I'm not going to deny any of those effects. I can observe them. But to establish a causal relationship is spurious. I mean, I've just spent a couple of hours with Anthony saying the same thing, because he'd get to the point where he debunked Newtonian principles, and I'd say, great job. But then he would start to introduce Einsteinian principles. I'm like, well, you don't have to come up with an explanation to debunk any explanation. Now, some people might say, what a cop-out. You've got to give us your explanation. No, I don't. But you're saying, well, what's your explanation? Well, I don't have one, I'm afraid, Mark.
No, it's a conclusion. That's all. If you've not got a conclusion, that's fine. I'm not going to push you on that. I just think that Arwin's position and Anthony's position, they're both drawing a conclusion.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely, Mark. I completely agree, and I tried to get this through to Anthony, and he wouldn't have it. So I'm going to close my mic off and give Anthony the floor, because he's very kindly kept his mouth shut this whole time.
Go for it, Anthony.
I just want to make 2 points, just to Arwin, not to Nathan, not to Ranty, not to... You can escape on this one, Mark. It's just to Arwin. I'm going to start with the more difficult one first, and I'm going to finish with the nail in the coffin. The more difficult one is, when you describe this, you're going to have to put the words back in my mouth, because I can't get the words right, because it's your phrase. Is it, what do you say, is the realignment of the what? Density, buoyancy gradient, is that what you call it?
It is the alignment of the density buoyancy directions.
Direction, right. So the word direction is
up
the issue,
and down,
right?
in a stationary setting on the Earth. It's up and down.
Up and down.
That is the alignment of the density buoyancy.
That's what I'm going to focus on, your use of the word up and down, okay? Now, previously offline, we were talking about how a tyre for a car, if the tyre has 35 psi in it, if I asked you to go and put that tyre to 40 psi, I could say to you, Arwin, go and put 40 psi in that tyre, and you'd know what I mean. I could also say, go and blow that tyre up to 40, go and blow that tyre up, and you'd also know what I mean. But if I said to a computer, or I said to the tyre itself, can you go up? It wouldn't understand what up meant, because up is not a phrase that it understands. But if I said go up to, if I said change the degree at 40 psi, it understands that, because its position is based on psi. But if I said go up or down, it won't understand it. So what
I didn't know that tires had understanding of things.
What I'm trying to say is your unit of quantification as up or down is the wrong unit, in the same way that you wouldn't describe the temperature outside with a currency. Trying to describe up and down with density over buoyancy is fallacious. It's not valid from the start, because it's not the right unit.
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. Density and buoyancy are expressed in the directions. It is one of the most important factors to even distinguish that it is there, because of the layers that order themselves in the specific directions. And in a stationary setting, it's up or down. Yeah.
Density and buoyancy values are not expressed as up or down.
Oh, really? But the actual observations on how you can determine it is there do.
Right, how you can determine, correct. It's subjective to the observer. But its actual values are numerical. That's why when you say up and down, it's not accurate. It's not void. It's void from the start, because you should be using a numeric value.
It is. So explain me when that time density and buoyancy cause.
Hold on, you're talking over each other again. Arwin, please just let him finish and then address it.
All right. So I said 35 psi for the tyre. Let's go back to the egg. Let's give the value of the egg in the water while That's just the value of 35. If you said to the egg, right, and you were not observing it, you told the egg that you wanted it to go. The egg would not know what you're referring to. If you told it to change it, then in 35, you gave it 34 or 36. That would tell it what to do. It would understand that because that's the relevant language. That's the correct unit of measurement or quantification that it would understand. That's a
Anthony,
valid unit.
you're not addressing the
It's
water.
a very weird concept of things, objects, understanding things.
Arwen, just hang on a minute. Anthony, you're not addressing what the water is doing, though. You're concentrating on the egg. What about the water?
You can change the density of the egg by 5 to 34 or 36, or you can change the water from 36 or 34 to 35 or 36. You can change them numerical values. But if you said up or down, neither the water nor the egg would understand the language because it's the wrong phraseology. It needs to be numeric. The value, it's relative. It's relative to its state.
So it's your position that up and down is not really a concept?
Up and down is it's an adjective. It describes what we see, but it isn't describing what's physically going on.
Left and right, front or rear, or forward or backwards, it's just not fitting into your perception.
That is so
not my
weird.
perception. Left or right, up or down are they're not valid calibrate. They're not valid units for what we're observing. Like I say, if you want the egg to displace up or down, you need to give it a numerical value greater than what it's currently in, which will be its state of equilibrium. But if you tell it up or down, it doesn't know what that means because it's the wrong unit of calibration. In the same way that you wouldn't describe the temperature outside
the egg doesn't understand forward or backwards either.
It is the motion.
That makes my point.
The change that we get to observe. Observations,
right.
You know?
Observations means what's going on.
Things in the real world that we see, that we can measure, that we can detect. Observation.
Yeah. Observing doesn't explain the physics. It's just observing what we're optically seeing. There's no physics in it up or down.
All right. Yeah. So there's no up or down because we see this happening, because we can actually design things incorporating directions. Yeah, that doesn't really matter. So up and down, it's all relative, you know. Yeah.
Correct.
Good one, Ellie.
It's really simple, and you've just hit it on the head, but you've done it with ridicule as though it's the wrong answer. But you've perfectly.
Are you straight into relativity?
Correct.
Yep.
But it is a relative state. The egg sits in a state of equilibrium to itself and its environment. So relative to itself, Einstein's general relativity is correct in this application. If you then apply it to the solar system, then obviously it's not valid. You can't validate it as true. But in this application, it is valid. But you can validate it to be true because we know what we're talking about with the densities and the variables between the density over buoyancy. But to describe them as up and down is fallacious. It's the wrong unit.
Right. So, hey, Anthony, are you a glober now? Because you're actually citing a concept that is routed in globe logic.
When that question's not necessary.
Respectfully, you're the one
No.
time,
Hold on,
so I
Mark.
thought,
That's a
maybe
perfectly
I'll just
legitimate question. Hold on, Arwin and everyone else. That's a perfectly legitimate question, Mark, on account of the fact that literally both Ranty and Sleeping Warrior have levelled that accusation at Arwin. So I don't see that as an illegitimate question at all.
So there's two answers. You're the one that's citing the Glober point about gravity, the belief, without evidence that you push to be true. I'm the one that's quantifying it inside physics, explaining what's really going on in the physics that we see.
Yeah, but you're simultaneously denying up and down and describing them as relative states.
Correct, because that is what's physically going on in the physics of what we're seeing.
Correct, that is what you're stating.
Einstein's principle of general relativity, or theory of general relativity, most applications that we can validate to be true. Where it goes wrong is where it starts talking about space and the solar system and all that kind of nonsense. Special relativity is the explanation for why things appear to be stationary but are physically moving, and we don't feel that 1,000-mile-an-hour tangential speed at the equator. That's nonsense. But Einstein's general relativity is correct in most applications where you can validate the science. That doesn't make me a baller.
Yeah, I kind of disagree on that part.
I'm not against science.
Let's get
I'm
Nora
just
on.
against pseudoscience.
Hold on a second, sorry. It'd be great if you could join, Nora. I know you've been part of this conversation, sorry to out you. But if you can join, it'd be great to have you on.
Does come in. While she's doing that, I'll make my second point. If you guys are going to start talking about an attractive force between masses, a downward acceleration force, and one that you can't prove to exist or quantify, or you just accept to be true and push to be true,
That's
then
unfair.
why-
That's unfair. We
why-
observe it.
You don't. You can't distinguish what
No,
you
I do.
observe from density over buoyancy. Anyway, my
Yeah, we
point is
we
this.
deduce it.
If
We
you guys are
deduce
going to
it.
push that to be true, that is the old, outdated, antiquated definition of gravity under the Newtonian principles. The current definition of gravity per
It's not
science
outdated.
is Einsteinian bending of space-time.
Listen, we're not arguing Newton or Einstein or Cavendish. We're just going by what we observe. If I drop a brick from my upstairs window, it'll hit the ground. It goes downwards. We have an up and a down. It's a
You're arguing
reference that we all go
Newtonian
by.
principles of gravity.
Sorry?
No,
Yeah,
not
he's,
the current
he's right,
definition of
Mark.
gravity.
You are literally. You're saying, well, no, we're not arguing Cavendish and Newton, and yeah, you are. That's precisely what you're doing.
You are. And that's not the
Which
definition
one?
of gravity anyway.
So
So even if
hang
I'm
on,
wrong
Nathan.
on the relative application of
Nathan,
relativity,
which one am I arguing
you guys are
for?
still wrong because that's not the current definition of science, gravity in science.
I don't care for the. I don't use the word gravity. You're using it again, aren't you?
Hang on, Nathan. Nathan, which one am I arguing for? If I drop a brick, it goes downwards.
Newtonian.
Yeah, can you be more specific rather than just saying that that's what he's doing? Can you explain it? Because that's what my question was going to be.
I don't understand what you mean, Travis. Can you? What do you want him to explain?
Well, you came in, Nathan, and you said, well, no, Mark, that's exactly what you're doing. You are addressing Cavendish. You are addressing. So can you say why you're saying that?
Because he's applying a Newtonian principle.
I'm observing it, Nathan. You know that's the way I think.
That's what I heard him.
You're applying Newtonian principles to your observation.
Listen, my head is in the air and my feet are on the ground. If I drop a brick, it goes towards my feet. That's observable. What are we arguing?
That's the Newtonian definition or the Newtonian principle of gravity, what you're describing.
No, it's not.
Well, maybe Newton was right then.
We're
That was what is observable.
We're down.
Yeah, down. Exactly. Down.
Yeah.
Up.
So what's down relating to?
What I object to Newton is that when he said that if you get a cannon with enough explosive power and a cannonball, you fire it and it will fall to the earth but miss the earth. That is bullshit. That's a nonsense. I don't accept that.
Yeah, and he thought so too. That's why he didn't publish it, and it was published for him after his death against his own will.
Yeah, was it 1958 when we got the Sputnik? What do you call them? Spinning around the Earth. Satellite, Sputnik satellite spinning around the Earth. Nobody challenged it. Nobody said, "Oh, Newton got it right." All they did was interpret it as the Russians can bomb us from a distance. It's all fallacious.
But this is a massive tangent, though. The original question was, your question was, is it Einstein? Why is it Newtonian gravity when you're just observing something going down? Nathan's right. I
know where my head is and I know where my feet is. And if I drop a brick, I know which way the brick's going to go. Why are we arguing about this? It's observable.
Because what I'm trying to show you is that you're describing down in. You're not realizing that down in the context that you're using it is referencing Newtonian principles.
Can I jump in and ask a question?
Yeah, but not masses being attracted to other mass. That's the part
we
we
agree.
and that's why we don't call it gravity.
I agree. Yeah, we're all on the same page in that regard because we're all of the understanding that the principle of gravity that's described to us in school is attraction of mass into either the bending of space-time or objects of mass attracting other objects of mass on a sphere. And none of us are going to, that's why I asked the question earlier when Arwin was pointing out that are you a baller now or asking the question. It's because I'm firmly assured that we are all on the same page in that regard. So if it's okay, if there was a baller here, I wouldn't be saying this because fine if you want to lead them with their arguments, but ultimately speaking, none of us think we're on a spinning sphere being attracted to the centre of it.
Well,
Yeah, and so Newton's
if you accept
explanation
that there's gravity
don't
the way
accept.
Darwin describes it, this upwards and downwards, then what is up and down on a flat plane?
Up and down.
What's
Relative
left
to
and
what?
right, what's front and
Why has it got to be
backwards?
relative to something? Because if I'm standing there and then, I can just say this is up and that's down. Over there, up and down is the same. If I move with the car and the car moves the air to the back of the car and forces the balloon forward, it's still going up. It's still attached by the string trying to go up towards the top of the car. I can still define up and down. It hasn't relatively changed what is up and down. I've just got a different force going left and right.
Correct, Nathan. And also, there's an engine in the car that's moving the car in a particular direction. There's
Exactly.
another force.
There's a force. That's the point here. There is a force at play in the car example that changes what's happening to the air. But ultimately speaking, we're now, or at least, sorry, Mark, you guys on what I would call the Newtonian side are saying there is still a force, because when I take a brick to the top of the building, well, you didn't even include that bit. You just say I drop a brick. You kind of do the Glober trick, and just the brick's already at the top of the building, and now you're dropping it off. So you're saying that is a effect that needs measuring, whereas the cause is you taking the brick to the top of the building or pulling it out the side of the wall and someone else plastering it into place was the cause of it being up there. But ultimately speaking, you need an attractive force, a cause, to go along with that explanation.
Yeah, we don't have it.
No, that's my point. That's why I remain neutral in this, because,
that's fine.
I don't see either side of this conversation. Anthony and Ranty with their Einsteinian side of the argument, and you two with your Newtonian side of the argument. You don't have to present an explanation for this. You can debunk the current assertions easily and not make any assertions at the end of it. But now you're both arguing your pseudoscience explanation for up and down.
Well, I'm not necessarily saying that Einstein is right on this. What I'm saying is that it's the current accepted position with gravity, meaning that the Newtonian one is out the window. But Darwin doesn't seem to get that point.
But no, you can't use that point against him. He's not a baller.
No, but he's arguing that there is a downward force, specifically the word force. Well, that's not the definition of science, gravity in science at the moment. So, yes, I am using it against Darwin because he's the one that's claiming there's a downward acceleration force, and there isn't in current science.
Right,
hang on.
You're saying relative terms, which is bending of space-time, I'm afraid, Anthony. So what are you going to say there?
Correct.
Ipso facto on a ball then, Anthony?
No, but what I'm saying is that
your argument falls... Well, your argument, if you introduce that part of the argument, suddenly falls apart also, I'm afraid.
No, because you're doing that. What's that one where you say if P then Q? You're saying that if P, relativity, therefore gravity, and I'm saying no. Relatively speaking, Einstein did get a lot of his theory on relativity correct, but it's only the stuff that we can prove to be true, not the stuff that we can't. Now, on density and buoyancy, we can prove it to be true, but anything else outside of that scientific method can't.
What do you mean prove it to be true? You're saying prove it to be true, and by that you actually mean demonstrate that there is an effect.
I'm saying that downward motion, the way Darwin describes it, is an outdated, antiquated science that no longer is accepted. That's my point.
And I agree. Now, you can debunk Newton, and you can use Einstein to do it. But that seems a bit unfair when another flat earther who won't be holding or shouldn't be aligned to the current mainstream narrative, unless they feel it's correct. I'm not saying that they are saying Newton is correct, because they're both saying we're not. Anyway, I just want to say hello to our new guest. Is it Paul? How you doing? Good to have you.
Hi.
Good to have you. Hopefully you can shed some light on all of this. Do you have an opinion?
No, not here, no.
Fair enough.
Right, so let me address the whole Newton situation. Again, I think that Newton's foundations for basic physics are absolutely correct in its entirety. It is only when the gravitational pull theory is interjected against his will again. He never publicized it. He didn't want to because he thought he knew it was pseudoscience. It was based on theoretical presuppositional assumptions. And that's why he didn't publish it. It was published for him after his death.
How do you know any of this? How have you verified any of this? Where's your primary sources? I'm not going to accept any of this nonsense, Arwin. No way.
It is
Hello?
established. He
Hold on, we've got a
even
new...
sent letters to colleagues.
Hold on, sorry,
saying that
Arwin.
he didn't
Hey,
accept
Matthias,
the
can you hear
clarification
us?
for him.
Hold on, Arwin. Can you hear us, Matthias? Hello?
Ranty, are you watching the back door?
Not especially.
Could you do it while I'm screen sharing, you see?
That's alright, I've kicked him out. The guy didn't say hello. He made noise when he came and then muted. Sorry to interrupt, Darwin. Okay, I'm going to share... Anthony's trying to screen share with the audience, so I'll just share it with you if you can give me 30 seconds.
Right. Okay.
So, let me know when we're good, Nath.
Yeah, everyone can see what you're showing.
All right. So my issue with Arwin is that the word force at the end, right? I do have an issue with the downward acceleration bit, the word downward, but I'll let that slide if he's prepared to compromise with the word force at the end, because even if he thinks there's a force there, it isn't the definition per se of science at the moment with regards to what he is describing. I know he doesn't use the word gravity, he redefines it in his own way, but the force bit is the problem, because everything that we can observe can be explained without any force needed whatsoever, right? But this, I want to read this part again. This is from a 2016 paper, Scientific American. You can find it by searching for how Einstein revealed the universe's strange non-locality. Just put that line into it and you'll find it. We'll scroll back down to this. Now, I describe gravity the way he describes, Arwin describes it, as this downward acceleration force, as magic, because it is magic. It's magic that he admits that he can't prove. It's a deduction of logic, which is fine, but he pushes it to be true. That's the bit I have the problem with. And I'm going to read what it says. For instance, Einstein created his general theory of relativity, which provides our modern understanding of gravity, with the express purpose of expunging non-locality from physics. Newton's gravity acted at a distance as if by magic, and general relativity snapped the wand in two by showing that the curvature of space-time, and not an invisible force, gives rise to gravitational attraction. Now, this is, of course, if you accept that this is what gravity actually is. I don't even think gravity exists. But Arwin's force, this downward acceleration force, is antiquated. It's outdated. It's out of fashion. It's not the current science anyway. So it's not easy for Arwin to maintain his position that there's a force there when nobody else in science even agrees with him. Because that's not the definition anymore.
Let's just let Arwin
respond.
respond.
Gravity turn out to be spark.
Hold on, Anthony. Hold on. Go ahead, Arwin.
Yeah, sorry, but the reason again why I call it the downward acceleration force, I know it's not a provable force, but why it's called like that is because the effect that causes density and buoyancy to align the way they do in a stationary setting is very comparable when you compare it to other forces being applied to a body of mass.
They're two different things, Arwin.
It will
You've
realign
done it
itself.
again. I've got to stop you. You've done it again. So you're talking about the effect, and then you're calling it a cause.
Not done yet.
But you've just done it. You've already done that. You've already started by describing an effect that you can observe, and now you're on to describing the force that is applied to that effect.
I'm comparing the effect to other forces having a similar effect.
You've done it again.
And it's not
hold on, you've done it again. You've done it again. You've done it again, Arwin. You've done it again. You've just done it in one sentence this time. So you've simultaneously said that you are going to do both cause and effect as though they're the same thing, and they're not.
I don't know the cause. I don't know the cause of this
That's the point.
effect. I just know what to
That's the point.
compare
You're
it.
using the word force, which is a cause.
It's only because it makes it easier to lay out what the effect is like. That is all.
But you don't need that. You can describe the effect without installing a cause.
It's a clarification in the word. I could
you don't. You've done it. You've done it 3 times. I've had to call you on it 3 times, Arwin, where you start describing an effect and then attribute a cause. But now you're saying I don't know the cause. Well, that's fine. Just describe the effect then.
It's an upward acceleration effect.
Hey, was not was.
Arwin, the issues with the word force. Now, I'm all right. The compromise, Arwin, is that if you're prepared... I've got an issue with the word down as well, because the word down is the distinction between Einsteinian relativity over Newton's, right? But I'll let that bit go if you're prepared to drop the word force at the end of it. Nathan is right.
So
you're
called
identifying
it the
cause and an
acceleration
effect at the same time.
Just call it the
What
upward
about-
acceleration effect.
What about left and right, front and backwards, though, aren't they?
Yeah, well,
Dunno,
that's
man,
the downward
I quite
bit
like
at the
that.
beginning.
I quite like that. What's wrong with downward? Hold on. Now I'm going to have to... Shoes on the other foot now, Anthony. What's wrong with down?
Newton.
Well, not just the word down. Down is real. Down I can describe. Down is something that happens.
Right. Right. So there's two ways I can deal with that. I can either illustrate it or explain it. Which would you rather?
Go ahead. You've got to prove it.
Well, you're about to do what Arwin does, right? And show me an effect of something?
No. You're saying down. What's wrong with down? What's down relative to? What's it referring to? The opposite of up?
No, left and right, front and backwards.
It's the opposite of left
It's
and
a
right.
position. It's a change in position.
Right. But when you see something that's being suspended in water, like the egg, for instance, up or down is not the correct phraseology. It's the wrong unit of measurement or quantification.
Not until
What's
it
the
moves.
water doing? You're concentrating on the egg, but what's the water
When
doing?
it moves, you don't. Yeah, you can describe what it's physically doing by up and down, but it's got no relative. It's got no weight to it whatsoever in the physics, because the physics is to do with density over buoyancy. It's either greater than its
Yeah,
environment or less than its
like
environment.
It's like
Yeah, but density and buoyancy only express them.
Go on, Travis.
I was just going to say it's like you're dissecting what a smile is, and you're discussing the mechanics of the muscle movements, and you're saying, well, that's not really a smile.
Yeah, but what you're trying to do is say, well, instead of saying it's 25 degrees outside, you're saying it's £2.50, and I say £2.50. What do you mean? You're using the wrong unit of measurement or quantification and
Not at
expecting me
all.
to understand it. And
Not at
come
all.
on, Tony,
The egg
that's-
moves up and down. It doesn't
Tony,
move
that's
2
bullshit.
pence and 5 pence and a pound. It moves up or down.
Yeah.
So that's a false
Right, but the
equivalency.
temperature doesn't move to £4.50, does it?
No. But it does move up
Right,
and
so why
down,
would
and
you
I can
describe up and
quantify that.
down
Hold
in
on,
the
hold on. I can quantify that by just showing you a thermometer. So you're like, well, no, it's based on numbers. Well, no, I can have a thermometer without any numbers on it and tell you if it's getting hotter, i.e. the thermometer's going up, or down, colder. So I can quantify things with up and down easily.
Right, but you're not quantifying it like in context. You're quantifying it out of context.
Why is it out of context?
Well, firstly, down is a reference to Newtonian principles of gravity, correct?
No.
Well, you may have got that right.
Well, hold on. Why would you say that just the word down? I mean, when I said this, I had a whole contextualized sentence around the word down. You've just went down is Newtonian. Well, prove that.
Okay.
Prove that definition. That word is a Newtonian word. You've got no hope.
No, because it's referencing the opposite of up, isn't it? The opposite of up being down.
Okay, show me where up and down are Newtonian terms. They're not. They're just words.
In the context of gravity, because of the constant g, little g.
Here we go. In the context of gravity. So you're immediately attributing gravity and the contextualization thereof when you say, I'm using up and down as a Newtonian word. I'm not. It's just up and down.
What are you
Simple.
using it as then?
Up and down, as opposed to left, right, diagonally.
Right,
So
I
you
said
use
this
it as
already.
an adjective.
It's
It's a
directional.
spatial
It's
element.
directional.
As an
It has to
adjective,
do
correct?
with
One at a
space,
time, one at a time.
directions.
Sorry, Travis, go ahead.
I was just going to say again, that was my whole hiccup in this. I'm thinking, why is Anthony saying this? And we've just come to it. Up and down. When we speak of it, Anthony, as far as I can speak for Mark and whatever, is we're talking direction. It's right, left, diagonal. It's up, down. It's directional. It's a change in direction. Change in
It's a
position.
spatial element. Has to do
Yeah.
with
So then I would be correct to say that you're
With
using up
positions,
and down in the
position,
context of an
direction,
adjective, a describing
spatiality.
word, correct?
yeah. So why
Okay.
would it not have this effect?
Hold on,
Because,
hold on.
yeah,
Anthony's now
density,
hold
buoyancy
on, hold
always
on. That's
express
not fair.
themselves
That's not fair at all.
within space.
Why have you
Within a
requalified
space,
it?
within
Why?
a
Hold on.
volume.
Why? Hold on, Arwin. Why have you now requalified it from a specifically Newtonian term to a describing term, an adjective. What you've now requalified what we're...
You contrasted it, saying that I was referencing gravity. So therefore, you mustn't be referencing gravity. And the only
I didn't
thing
say that. You said that.
Yeah, but hang on. I'm referencing down in the Newtonian concept, right? You contrasted that and said, no, I'm applying it to gravity. So that means, therefore, you mustn't be applying it to gravity.
No, you said...
You can only be using it as an adjective.
No.
Correct.
You said in the context of gravity, not me.
Correct.
Well, that's you saying it. Why are you now asserting that I am putting it into that context when I'm pointing out... Hold on. I'm pointing out that you are putting that in that context. And you're saying, hold on, Anthony, for God's sake. When I said it, I contextualise it. You've now said that up and down in Newtonian terms. They're not.
Because, let me finish. Because when I stated it was in reference to gravity, you stood back and you corrected my position and said, that's what you're applying it to, correct?
Yeah, and that's my point.
You're
not
applying it to that.
Hold on. You're trying to explain to us that it has to be contextualised with gravity. And I'm saying, no, it doesn't.
No, that's not what I said. You said in the context of gravity.
Those were your exact words. In the context of gravity.
But then you contrasted that. So therefore, you mustn't be using it in the context of gravity. You must therefore be using it in the context of an adjective. Correct?
Yeah, and that's where it ends. I can just use up and down as adjectives. Right. And that end of sentence. I don't need to qualify it with gravity, Einsteinian, or Newtonian. Both you and Arwin are. That. You're both doing it. And then you're saying when you qualify it like I'm doing it, I'm the only one who's neutral here. I'm the only one going, no, I'm not. I don't have to qualify anything. I don't have to provide an explanation. I can just use adjectives like up and down.
And I accept that you're using it as an adjective. That's fine. However, when you're using it as an adjective only, it's then the wrong description, to the wrong unit of quantification. Because if you describe it as down, say it's like go with the space explanation, right? You don't know what down is.
No, that's my point. That's my argument. Well, that's absolutely my argument when you contextualize it in a Newtonian fashion. That's my argument. This is outrageous. Why am I having your arguments foist on me and then you using my arguments against me? This is outrageous. I've never had to debate you in this context, Anthony. You're a bugger. And I can see why. People get rattled. I like this a lot.
But ultimately, I'm happy to move away from that point. I don't agree with that point, but I'm happy to move away from it if you remove the word force from the end of the description.
I've got to agree.
Downward acceleration force.
Well done, Anthony. Immediately seek alignment from the person you're disagreeing with. I've got to agree with you there, which moves things over back to Arwin.
Yeah. Force.
So let me get back to some denial of directions. Do you deny that
there's an
density
object
and buoyancy effects
in
a body of mass express themselves in two directions?
1 second, Arwin. I'll just say hello to Milo, and then you'll have to repeat your question. Hello, Milo. How are you doing?
Hello.
Hello. Do you want to repeat your question, Arwin?
Yeah, Anthony. Do you deny that the effects of density and buoyancy that we observe within a body of mass express themselves specifically in two directions?
Yes, I deny that. That's not what they do.
That's
what you describe them as,
but that's
not what they do.
All over the place. Chaos.
No, your question was, do you deny that they? And the answer to that question is no, they do not. They.
It just goes in all directions. You know, it's just like
greater than,
goes
less
outwards. Than. No, the layers don't order themselves in an equilibrium fashion.
Yeah, they do. That's exactly what they do. Look at fluid dynamics and fluid density variance. That's exactly what they do.
Anthony, what's how do you define a force?
Depends on what definition you're going to apply. There are two.
Well,
there's an evidential.
I'm asking you which one do you? Which one do you?
There's an evidential definition and there's a physics definition. If you're going to go with the mathematical physics one, it's force equals mass times acceleration.
No, but I'm asking you, what do you define as a force? Because you're saying there's. I mean, you want to narrow that down?
Yeah, if you're in a car and you're traveling at 60 miles an hour, that speed, that force of speed that you're driving at, you can show.
I'm not asking for.
Car.
not asking for an example. I'm asking for a definition so we can know what we're talking about. Because you're
Something you
saying
can
that.
prove.
But
Something
you're
you can
saying
prove.
that.
Hold on,
No,
Anthony.
hold up.
Just let him get to the end of his sentence.
Thank you. So you're saying that Arwen is not describing a force. Now, what definition of force are you basing that denial of Arwen's claim?
Some evidential that you can prove.
No, that's not the definition of a force. I mean, anything
You just asked me
anything. So anything that's evidential is a force, is what you're saying.
No, you asked me what was a force in that context, and my answer is something
I'm
you can prove.
asking. No, I'm asking you, how do you define a force?
Yeah, and I've just told you something that you can prove.
So anything that you can prove is a force. Is what
Like
you're
a
saying.
magnet. Like a magnet, right?
So a book is a force. If I prove to you that I have a book in my hand, that is a force.
No.
So okay, so then we can hold up. So then we could throw that definition you gave away. So how do you?
Okay,
so
throw
I'm
it away
asking. I'll ask again. How do you define a force?
Something that we can prove.
That's really sad, Nathan.
I mean,
No.
We could all agree that that's not how you define force.
But you asked me, how do I define a force?
Exactly. So
And my
the
answer
book
is,
in my
I've
hand.
proven that there's a force there. So when you said a book
That's not
is
a
a
definition.
force, when
Anthony,
you said a book
do you
is
know
a
what
force,
the force
we both
is?
dismissed it and put it in the bin.
You
The reason
just-
why it went in the bin
Hang on,
was because the book wasn't making someone else do something, was it?
Anthony, you're giving me requests and prerequisites, and you're not actually defining anything. I'm asking you to define it.
I've just told you the answer. It's something that you can prove exists.
That's not the definition of a force.
Well, the definition of a force by maths is force equals mass times
No.
acceleration.
I'm not asking for math.
So in what context are you asking for it then?
I'm asking for the definition that you're using to rebut Arwen's claim.
Something that you can prove exists.
That's existence. That's not a force. I'm with Milo on this.
You guys know what I'm asking?
Confused. Yeah. Anthony, I don't feel you're being very clear. It's very obtuse.
Well, let me explain
It's not a gotcha question, Anthony. It's not a gotcha question.
I know it's not a gotcha.
I'm trying to figure out on what basis.
Concise. I'm trying to answer it clearly and concisely as possible to avoid it being confusing. If you're in a car doing 60 miles an hour, the force that you're applying on yourself is caused by the car. We can all see that. Nobody would deny it.
Once again, Anthony, you're giving me you're just describing it. You're giving me an example of it. I'm asking for a definition. Do you understand?
Something you can prove. What's hard about that?
Okay.
Can somebody else ask him?
Yeah. So Anthony, you're describing with your car illustration is something that causes that produces motion, a change in direction, which is a cause. I don't know.
No, you've basically defined it there. You've given pretty much the right definition. Influence that causes an object to change motion would be pretty much the definition of a force.
Yeah. I'm all right.
Can we all agree? Can we all agree with that?
Yeah.
Well, that is the definition, so there's nothing to really agree about. You're asking for a definition, there it is.
Great. Okay, so then what Arwen is describing is a force. There's a force in that example.
Right.
Because there's a change in motion.
Prove said force.
The fact that there's a change in motion is enough proof that there's a force involved. That's how you define force.
And what would be that?
Change in motion. So the cause was what are we talking about? Are we talking about letting go of a brick?
Excuse me? Yeah.
So I pick a brick up, I let go of brick. You're saying that there's a force being applied other than the fact that you see it drop.
Yeah.
But there's a force because there's a change in motion. That's how you define
no.
force.
There's a force because he picked the brick up.
Yeah, there's two forces then.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So
sorry, what's the other
force involved?
What's the other force?
The force.
The force that's going down.
Yeah, the second force was a potential energy. The first force was going against whatever was pulling the brick down in the first place.
Yeah, but the thing is, you pick the brick up.
Yeah.
You lift it up to a point, right? You just put it into a position that's now it's not going to stay there because it's a brick.
Right.
You let go of it, and it falls back to where it was.
Anthony, if you were to move the brick 5 meters left of you, would it remove? Would it want to go back 5 meters back to where it was?
But you're not applying a density over buoyancy argument there, are you?
No. Listen, Anthony.
Talking about forces.
The same effect.
That's your argument, mate. That's your argument, Anthony. If you shift it one way,
that's pretty much your argument.
That's your argument.
Real.
But what the answer to that question is
down?
Density and buoyancy is not a lateral movement. It's a variable that moves greater than or less than that you lot describe as up or down, which I reluctantly accept.
Prove it.
However, no force is required. No force is required.
Okay, so how do you define force, Anthony?
Something you can prove.
Oh, here we go. Maybe Nathan can repeat the definition because Anthony's still not getting it.
No, I am getting it. But we're trying to get to the point that you guys accept that you can't prove it, which Alan admitted in the first sentence.
Anthony, Nathan, we've already agreed with Nathan's definition, but he can.
I agree with it. Read the definition again, Nathan.
Go ahead.
I'd like to give another example. It's kind of elaborate, so I don't want to be interrupted. If you guys are okay with it.
I'm not gonna take too long, Arwen.
Okay, so weight. Weight. You know the difference between weight and mass, right?
Yeah, volume.
No. The force of gravity.
No. Hold on. Weight.
No,
sorry. The confidence that you said
Milo,
that with.
Milo, explain why you're laughing, please.
The confidence that you said that with, and you were wrong. It's kind of funny.
Yeah.
So explain why I'm wrong.
They'll explain. Go ahead.
No.
Okay.
Milo, you laughed. Why are you laughing?
You were talking to somebody else. I was just laughing.
Why were you laughing when I was asked the question, what's the difference between weight and mass? Why am I wrong? So you're laughing for no reason then, are you? And you can't explain why I'm wrong, you're just laughing.
You weren't talking to me, you were talking to somebody else.
Now he's asking you why you're laughing. Hold on, Anthony, because he just keeps going around in circles. So he gave an answer, and then you laughed, and now he's asking why.
Because he said volume.
So why is it wrong?
Because volume has nothing to do with it.
Are you sure?
Positive. He's asking you. He's asking you.
Yes.
He's asking for the difference between weight and mass.
Get into the point that I was going to make? Because I didn't expect like this red herring discussion.
Fair enough. Go ahead, Darwin.
The difference. Oh, just tell me when to go. Continue.
Whenever you like. Go ahead.
All right. So, weight and mass. Okay. Weight is mass when a force is applied to it. And weight is measured, like on a scale, through pressure. So pressure and weight are side effects of a force being applied to mass. And you can test this. If you stand on a scale in a stationary setting, then the pressure of your mass will cause the scale to push and give you a weight. Weight measurement. It will give you exactly the weight in a stationary setting. Now, go, for example, let's get silly, go in a rocket. It accelerates upwards. You're going to stand on that scale. Guess what? The weight is increased because there's a force being added, causing the mass to be expressed in more weight. Now, hold on. Now you stop the rocket and you go down. And you stand on that weight on that scale again. Guess what? Because you're motioning down, all saying that the directions remain the same. The weight measured by this scale, because of the pressure as being less, will say it will be less because the forces have shifted. And it's now being countered. The same goes on scale
didn't show out.
sidewards.
So back to Arwen's point, where you're going in a rocket, going up, you're also working against the force.
Milo, please.
Why
you can also sit in a car, for example, put a scale between you and the seat of your car. Well, you're gonna like lean on it a little. It'll not give the full weight, but it will give some weight because of the pressure. If you then accelerate forwards, guess what? The scale
I don't know. We usually hear him say it.
It's going to increase in weight because there's pressure. There's force being exerted. That is how it is. And that is how you can very easily deduce that there is an effect going on, that it seems to exactly be like a force in a stationary setting. There's no scientific evidence of it, but it's very easily concluded, it's very deducible, and it is universal.
And with that, I'm going to say first and foremost a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of the live audience for tuning in and hopefully sharing this debate. And also a massive thank you to all of the debating panel for making this debate possible. If you hated the show, then you know exactly what to do, but if you like the show, maybe consider sharing it with a friend or subscribing if you have not done so already. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
Oh, what a day! What a lovely day!